This time I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for April 25th for Twinsburg. Are we going to do a roll call? Actually, we're all here. All of council is here. Our new finance director, Christina Conway's here. The mayor's here. So everybody in attendance. Has everybody on the committee had a chance to review the minutes? And are there any changes or amendments that you propose?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bellin made a motion. Mr. Barr seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved unanimously. Is there any audience participation? Doesn't look like it. Next on the agenda is the introduction of our new finance director, Christina Conway. Greetings and thank you for being here and congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a fun 2 days, but
I have a list of about 27 questions that I'd like to go through with you.
that's fine. I would just like to start, and I really want to say thank you to the women in the finance department who have really taken over since Sarah left. They have been more than welcoming. They are a really good crew so far, and they are very knowledgeable, very hardworking, and they deserve a ton of credit for keeping things running in the interim until I was able to start. Great.
Awesome. Yeah, very fortunate.
Just for the public who might view this, could you tell us a little bit about yourself so they have some of your background?
Sure. So I grew up in the neighboring city in Solon, but I spent a lot of my childhood in Twinsburg. So I have family here. Graduated from Solon High School. Went to Ohio University. I have my law degree from Capital University, so I am a licensed attorney. I was the contract compliance officer for the city of Solon for about 5 years. Prior to that, I worked my way up through accounting for the city of Solon. I was the acting finance director for a short period of time when they were in between finance directors. And most recently, I spent 6 years with Cuyahoga County. I ran their auto title division, so 50 employees, 5 offices. And we were responsible for $180 million in revenue. Not a small chunk of change, but it was a nice change to come back to my roots. I grew up in local government, so I think it'll be a good fit, and so far everyone has been more than welcoming and accommodating, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Awesome. So do we, Christina. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Are there any questions at this? Mr. Deeds?
Are we allowed to say, don't we refer to that as that city up north?
You may, if you choose to say that. I don't think there's.
I was just, there's a procedural thing. I was just wanted to.
I'm from Ravenna, man. We don't like Kent, so I'm good with Solon. Just saying. We all have our rivals. We all have our issues. You can refer to the city of Solon as anything you'd like. Next on our agenda is to review the timelines, because as Christina was coming on, we had some timelines for capital improvements and the budget process. You know, again, in the past, we were doing a temporary budget and approving it into a final budget at the end of March. Christina and the mayor have talked, and I believe that she would prefer to do a final budget on the end of December, which we've done it both ways since I've been on council. And to tell you the truth, I don't have the reason we were going to the temporary is because some of our finance directors wanted to see the close numbers from the January to see what adjustments or issues with the revenues that were coming in, because they come in late. But I have no problem with that. But what are your thoughts on a budget timeline?
I've actually done both ways, having a temporary budget, and then we transition to having the completed appropriations done by the end of the year. I think, in my opinion, having it done by the end of the year is smoother. You don't have to, it almost creates like double work when you're doing a temporary, and then you're also hurrying up to get a final appropriation done by March. I did bring it up to the department heads. The mayor had a staff meeting yesterday, so I did let them know that that's my intention. And I know that they just finished doing a budget, but I think it'll go smooth. And once you get it into place, you don't have to go back. You start your year fresh, and I think everyone will appreciate it once it's in place. It's just a lot of work this first year.
That sounds like I agree with that. I mean, I don't think we need a motion to approve that. It's your department, and we'll work with you, whatever process you would like to do.
Okay.
We traditionally have our finance meetings monthly, and we often schedule an hour. As we're trying to do this, if we needed to have them more often, we can schedule them on the off nights of council, or we can have them, if time permitting, we can have them before council, or even start them earlier. But in the past, it's worked in my opinion, the temporaries were pretty much finals. We looked at some things after the fact, but I don't think there was that much as I recall, that was very minor, the 5% changes of things, in February, so we could have the 3 readings and then pass it on an emergency. Mm-hmm. So there really wasn't that much that was changed. So again, as we go through this and we see a process for the budgeting was to interview each department, hear, what their needs are, for instance, if the fire department or the service department needed additional employees, that would, we'd have to talk about the employee costs. If there was equipment, that'd be on the capital, which goes side by side, but, or unique needs that we would need. Mm-hmm. So, but, any issue with that, or any changes that you'd like to discuss?
I think I will defer to the mayor. We kind of had a discussion whether we wanted to have department heads present everything to council, or, do they present their information to finance, and then we kind of do like an overall presentation to everyone, and then if there's residual questions on certain projects or whatnot, then the department head would be available for questions.
Sure. I mean, as we spoke earlier, I think that we run a very lean budget, in my opinion. Mayor,
Sorry, what was that?
I think we run a very lean budget, and that typically the mayor and his department heads, in conjunction with the finance director, come to us with pretty much. I just don't think there's been that much of a differential from what is presented to what we approve, because we've run it really lean, in my opinion, for the last 5-6 years. So that, if we don't need to go through every line item necessary with the department head, we typically would want to hear what changed or what made things go up or why things went down.
If I may,
Go ahead,
if I
Mayor.
may jump in, that's what we were talking about today, because she started, she was putting together her timelines today for, the budget and for the capital improvements and so on. She started working on that, and she brought that up to me about, what you just said. Do we want to go, line by line, or should we just present to them? And I mean, there's times that we've gone line by line, and it's just like, there's not a whole lot of reason for that, but I told her, we'll discuss it with council and see what you guys want to do. But, like you said, Bill, I mean, it's just, what's the differences? What are the big changes, if there's any? And I think that would be a good way to present the budget, and just make it streamline it a little bit, but still get the same information at the same time.
We usually get a booklet of every account that's 65 pages rough. I don't have it in front of me. Nice little booklet. And we see the column of what was last year and what's proposed this year. As far as like what's in each of those categories, we rarely, unless there's an up or a down, and they're not.
My ultimate desire would be to.
Thank you,
probably.
David. It looks like this. Mr. Post has just decided to hand me one, but and.
Is it still in the briefcase?
It's only
'cause you
48
haven't read it?
pages, so I apologize.
Some of us have room for carry stuff.
But
My desire would be to present more of a general overview, go through each department, where they finish the year or where we anticipate them finishing the year, any major changes, whether it's to expenditures or to revenue, kind of bypass the minutia of like what the day-to-day operations entail, but really kind of alleviate the department directors being responsible for that, because that's really, it's my department's responsibility to handle the budget, and it should be our presentation as well.
Mr. Bellin.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I have the ultimate confidence in you and the department heads to go through those line by line. Again, I would like to see any large variations year over year, but beyond that, I don't particularly care to go through line item by line item. I would also agree that I like having the final budget done by the end of the year. I think the last time it made any sense to me to hold off was the COVID years. And knock on wood, that's not an issue anymore. So yeah, I understand that kind of pushes those timelines up a little bit for the department heads, but I think to your point, you do it once and you're on that schedule and you're done. So
Done. Yeah.
You have a preference?
No, I basically echo your thoughts, Mr. Palin's. I think that the reason we hire and have such a competent staff and department heads and administration is to, boil it all down to something that us non-accounting types can understand and digest. And certainly if there are, significant variations, it warrants a conversation. But I think most of it is, the cost of doing business, so to speak. And as far as the year-end temporary appropriations kind of thing goes, I mean, truthfully, I would defer to your judgment and the mayor's on this. It's wrapping it up by the end of the year always seemed to make sense to me. But, understandably with the COVID years and shifting things around a little bit, I have no issue at all. So,
Are there any questions by any of the other council members present? Okay. All right. Well, then it sounds like we're set on that. Now, we talked a little bit about the capital improvement timeline, and there was a preliminary schedule starting in August 29th, ending on 9/23, with 5 meetings scheduled. And again, as we spoke of previously, the capital improvement aspect it gets presented to a 5-member board, and we get recommendations that are presented to the Finance Committee. But that recommendation comes typically in the beginning of October, so there's plenty of time to have that added to a budget, which, for 3 readings to pass it on, and to still pass it on emergency to get it down to the county. Last meeting in November. In December, we have a meeting the first week and the second week, and then take a break for Christmas, typically, because our meetings are by charter on the second and fourth Tuesdays. Council meetings are the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And we do make a change typically. Did we do that already yet this year?
we might have done it the first
I think
meeting.
one year we did it the first meeting. I recall.
I think we did. Shannon, we did it.
Shannon, yes.
Yeah.
So we already did that. So it'll be the first and second Tuesday of December. Now you thought that you might have a slightly different schedule that you were looking at?
My hope was to have everything done and through and on third reading December 12th. So the first meeting in,
Sure, that's the second meeting
or
in
the
November.
Second meeting in December.
Again, we can have a reading and still make changes, but so the last meeting in November, first week in December, second week in December. There's your 3 readings. We passed
Okay.
on an emergency.
I just have a little bit different, like that we would start the second, or so the first meeting in November, the second.
We can pass it earlier than that, so you can go first.
It would give any adjustments that we need to make on our end, and then, the paperwork that we need to file for the county, just to give us a little bit of time. I don't like pushing the deadline to the last minute because you never know what's going to come up. So hopefully, and you don't know if people are taking vacation around the holidays, so we have time, so we
Okay.
can discuss it.
Again, often the capital improvement schedule that is given to the board for review is, again, pretty much streamlined. It's already gone through the mayor's offices and the department heads, and you've already looked at internal and thought what your needs were, and they can agree or disagree with the recommendation, and it's still the discretion of council on what gets put or Finance Committee would make a recommendation, and council would have the final word in the budget on what's added to that. So, yeah, I'm sure we can work out those dates in that process. I don't anticipate any issues with that. Are there, Mr. Bellin or Mr. Barr, do you have any questions on the capital improvement process?
No, sir.
Anybody else on council have a question on the capital improvement process? Okay. Next on our agenda is unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Is there any unfinished business that anyone, either on the board, or on the committee, or excuse me, or on the council has? All right, we have no absent members. Our next meeting date is scheduled for May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. Is that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. At this point, then, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at
6:31.
6:31. Thank you.